Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. It is I, Jesse Milestone, coming to you on this Friday with both good news and bad news.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
Where people were just walking around, just jizzing force all over the place. He looks like he has been drinking soy from his mother's teat. Wrap yourselves in, guys, because we are gonna get mean!
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is Jesse Milestone. I am your God Empress and fearless leader of the Mindless Mob. And today I'm going to say something that apparently makes me a giant racist, but it's true. And the fact is that there's absolutely no reason to shoehorn people of color into Lord of the Rings. It's not a problem if Lord of the Rings maintains forever, if every filmic adaptation of Lord of the Rings has a completely purely white cast. That's not an issue. It's not racist. It's not bigoted. But apparently that makes me a bigot for just fucking saying that. And the thing is, I'm not just saying this shit because I like to say it. I like to sensationalize. I'm an edgelord. I think it's edgy to believe that white people are the best and the good guys. I know. It's not what's going on. It's not what any of this is fucking about. This is just simply a statement of fact. And I can take you through the goddamn logic if you're smart enough to follow. Most of you who aren't smart enough to follow are probably already too busy clapping your hands over your ears, reading, going, oh yeah, he's so racist. He's so bigoted. He's so offensive. Yeah. But, if you can pry your hands off of your earlobes for 5 fucking seconds, you might learn something. You might learn how to build a better goddamn world. Because here's the thing. It's actually, I'll extrapolate. It's not a problem ever. It's not a problem ever to have a fantasy world that includes only one color of people. Whether it be white, black, brown, yellow, purple, I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? And there's two very chief reasons, right? And why this is one, fine, and two, not racist. One, in fantasy worlds typically have multiple races of creatures, right? They have mythological creatures, not all of them, but many of them do. Most fantasy worlds contain other non-human species. And in those fantasy worlds, typically, in most cases, almost every case, non-human species have become allegories for xenophobia, have become allegories for racism, for bigotry, for discrimination, and in fact, do it better, right? Because they put it into a package, they wrap it into a more palatable package that doesn't feel like you're being constantly assailed with these messages over and fucking over again. So you actually can digest them. So if you are a person who say, I don't know, maybe was raised in a part of the country where you weren't exposed to a lot of different kinds of people and may have picked up certain prejudices, you watch something with fantasy, and without even realizing it, you start to have your mind opened up to the idea that people can be different from you and not bad. And you weren't an evil or bad person for having those prejudices. You were just never exposed to another way of thinking or looking at things. But when we make everything so on the nose, when we lock everything in such specificity of today's language, today's terms, today's way of speaking about racism, race, identity, and all of these things, then what we do is lose that. You lose that opportunity to actually create change or inspire people or make people see things a different way. Impress upon, say, a younger generation who hasn't had time to form these ideas one way or the other. You let them you guide them into making up their own mind without beating them over the head and making them feel bad or evil if they haven't yet come to these conclusions on their own. So that's why it doesn't matter if there's different colors of people in fantasy, because you have another vessel, you have another vehicle right within fantasy to tell your stories about diversity, about inclusion, about different types of people in a better way, in a system that is tried and true to deliver the message in a more effective way than just fucking telling people. That's one. Two, what are we always told as writers? Writers and creators, people who write things are always told the same one very simple thing over and over and over again. Write what you know. Write what you know. And how much hot water have people actually gotten in, say, white people who are trying to write characters of color, but they're doing it wrong because they don't get it, and they're writing it like a white savior would write it, and all this, and it's wrong, and it's bad, and it's evil. So what? White people can't be writers anymore because we don't know the experience of something else, and therefore we can't write about it, but we're not allowed to write stories with only white people in them because that makes us evil and bad. I don't like this world where I'm not allowed to be a writer because of the color of my skin. I don't like this world where people are barred from professions because of the color of their skin. And that's the thing. Follow me along in my world, because in my version, where it's totally fine if a white dude or white chick writes a fantasy world with only white people in it, in this universe, guess what? In my world, there are also Black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and queer people and all different kinds of people who express themselves in all different ways, and I give their creativity equal weight to my own. I am not a racist person, so I don't automatically assume that a white person's writing is more valuable or has more worth than a Black person's or another type of person's. But that's the problem, right? It's not that everyone wants to say, well, I don't assume that. That's just the way the world is, and we just have to deal. No, you're making an assumption, and you're perpetuating the system by entering into it, assuming that it will always be that way, and therefore never opening up for the possibility of change. If you go in assuming that's what's going to happen, why the fuck are you going to how are you going to even be able to open yourself up to let any different outcome happen? But again, in my version, in my world, in the way that I want to approach something like diversity and inclusion, guess what? I could write, if I want to write people that just look like me because that's what makes sense to me and I don't feel comfortable writing outside of that, I don't feel like I'm going to do it right, then I should be able to do that. If I feel really comfortable, really connected to another type of person's struggle perhaps, and I want to include that in some way in my writing, I should feel comfortable doing that. As no matter what I look like, if that speaks to me as a creative, if I relate to that, I should be able to do that. And again, in that universe, I don't think in my world, in my way of thinking, no one person, no one skin color or race is going to be any better or worse at writing those types of stories than another. And so if you want your forced diversity, if you want to make sure that everyone has a voice, then in my world, you don't need to race swap every goddamn work that's ever been written. You don't need to make sure that anything that has a white lead character also has every other diversity box checked somewhere on the screen. Otherwise it gets canceled. No, you just need to make sure that you're giving equal chances to creators of different ilks. Because that's where it comes down to. People, everyone that wants the characters to look a certain way, the actors to look a certain way. What about the people that you don't see? What about the people who are actually creating the heart of these stories? Because guess what? Everyone whines and cries social justice. We have to put this color person and that color person, that color person in these movies that are still being written, directed, and produced by more privileged white people. Why don't you go around and actually find creatives who exist of those identities, of the identities you want to prop up, and prop up their works instead? Because in my world, that's the way it goes. Anybody can write whatever they want, can put whatever types of people into their stories that they do or don't want to, and it is our responsibility as a people, through hopefully social consensus, to be out of curiosity to discover new things, to go and look at stories written by people who don't look like us. And if we can't do that by social consensus, out of our natural human curiosity, then sure, it is the responsibility of certain people in society to band together and say, hey, let's put a spotlight more on this type of work or that type of work because it's going, it's going unnoticed. But there's no reason to change existing works or to put down rules for how things can and can't be written. Because in this diversity world, if we go, now let's go down this other path for a minute. Let's imagine we're not playing by my rules. We're not playing by my rules where every single person's voice is equally valuable. And so we should theoretically have our choice, our pick and choice of so many different stories written by so many different types of people to put on screens, to put into songs, to put into stories, etc., etc. No, we're going to go down the road where everybody has to play the diversity game. Everybody has to do it. So let me ask you then, why doesn't Black Panther have Asian representation or Hispanic representation or trans representation? Because right there, it just falls apart right there. Well, if a movie is not good, it's not social justice, if it doesn't have somebody of color, if it doesn't have three different people of three different colors and at least one trans person and a queer person and a differently abled person. Well, guess what? Where's your check mark in a movie like that? In a movie like Black Panther, or in a kung fu movie that's not even made by the U.S. of fucking A? Where's the room for an Asian actor who so desperately wants to be a Wakandan? Nobody looks at that. If an Asian person were to go, it's racist and unfair that they don't have any Asians playing Wakandans because I want to play a Wakandan, we would all be like, shut up, you selfish a-hole. But that's no different than what's going on here. Oh, you need to race swap all these roles because it's so important that Black people have a chance to play these roles too. And gay people have a chance to play these roles too. No, just write better roles for them. Because guess what? No white person's ever going to get to play those roles. I mean, they have in the past, sure. Yeah, that's why we have to do it. Because you've changed those roles in the past. Okay, so if we live our life, Hammurabi, eye for an eye, what does that leave? The whole world fucking blind. Wake the fuck. I don't even entertain that line of questioning anymore. Because again, the only way way that this way makes sense, that this logic makes sense. No, it's fine. If black people want to have all black cast, if Hispanic people want to have all Hispanic cast, we want to have a movie without a straight person in sight, that's totally fine. And those movies do not have any requirement to include diversity of any other types. Your queer movie doesn't have to have black people in it. Your black movie doesn't have to have Asians in it. Your Asian movie doesn't have to have trans people in it, etc., etc. That's all fine. Only your white people movies. Only your white people movies have to have this level of diversity in it. Why? Because white people in this line of thinking are inherently bad and evil. And guess what? I just don't subscribe to any train of thought that describes one type of skin color as lesser or worse than the other. And that's what we always come back to in the identity politics game, is that identity politics is the simple act of valuing people based on their identity, valuing, putting together social hierarchy based on the valuation of human beings by the color of their skin, their gender, or the people they're fucking. That's not okay. That's this world you want to live in. In the world I want to live in, we can have a Lord of the Rings movie or a TV show that's cast with 100% white people, and at the same time, we can have an equally great fantasy epic that's cast with 100% with people of color. Why not? Why does it have to always be force you to change, force you to this, force you to that? Why can't we just keep expanding our minds and opening up to everything? Because the way we're going, there's only one right way. There's only one true idea. There's only one correct narrative. And when your creativity turns into that, it's completely bankrupt. That's not creativity anymore. That's not imagination. That's just following the party line. That's just walking the walk and talking the talk. And I'd like to remind you all at this juncture, because a lot of you are probably sitting here thinking, yeah, those stinking dirty liberals, yeah. Guess what? News flash. The people on the opposite side are just as responsible. They are just as interested in censoring you and forcing you to believe only one way. Neither side is good. They are both evil. They are both playing you. They both will only be happy if you align 100,000% with their ideology. And if you say put one toe out of line or say boo, they cancel you left or right. It does not matter. Look around, open your eyes. Equal side is just as vicious. So don't dig your heels in on some dumbass line saying these are the bad guys, those are the bad guys. These people are bad. No people are bad. Individuals fuck things up for everybody else. Our job, our imperative is to accept every type. And that means accepting movies, works of art, stories about things you hate, about things that maybe make you uncomfortable, that you don't want to deal with. It is okay for stories to exist about how women deal with getting abortions, just like it is okay for stories to exist about young men learning how important guns are to their lives. Because one story is for one type of person and one story is for another type of person. And everyone's right there from that alone is going to unsubscribe and cancel because you're evil if you believe in one of those things. You're evil if you believe in the opposite thing. Get the fuck over yourself and just accept the fact that people are going to be different. And if you can't understand that there is no such thing as moral absolution in this world, then you're already a lost cause. And I don't need to fucking try to explain this shit to you anymore. So that's it. That's that. I'm not saying I need white Lord of the Rings. I want white Lord of the Rings. I'm just saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying it's not a fucking problem to do it that way. And everyone needs to fucking get over it and stop being afraid to say this shit. White people are not, as a whole, singularly evil and the problem. There are bad people in every group. Are there bad ideas that come from whiteness? I don't fucking know. That's not my area of expertise. But it is always fundamentally wrong to treat an entire group of people based on stereotypes that have to do with their skin color. That I do know for a fact. And that I feel very comfortable saying. So fuck y'all if you don't agree. And if you do, cool. But if you have if you don't agree, please tell me. Please talk to me. Please use your words instead of just crying in a corner like a bitch. You can't, think of a good rebuttal. But that's how I play. That's how my sandbox goes. We play rough. So if you can hang, then I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your takes. What I really, really love, though, my favorite, are the people who come into my comment section and are like, I've been following you for years, and you said this douchey thing and that douchey thing. And thank you so much for your consistent engagement. It really, really helps. So appreciate you. Check out my links, guys. I'm on 17 live streaming music and just bullshitting over there all the time. It's so much more fun than being over here. We got a great Discord over the Mindless Mob Discord server. It's so much fun. So check that out. Again, I'm all about having fun, have a good time, saying fuck you to anybody who pisses me off, and I don't know why I'm still talking. So that's it. God Empress out.